The Detroit Pistons released their full 82 game schedule for the upcoming 24-25 season. We'll go through the schedule. I'll give my win-loss prediction, and we'll talk it all through in just a moment.
Lane, skies a jam. Dynamite dunk, and the crowd loves it.
Back to Pistons Intellect. I'm your host, Jack Kelly. You can follow us over on Twitter at Jack_Kelly_3on3. You can also follow us over on Instagram at Pistons_Intellect. And as always, if you're feeling so kind, please hit that subscribe button. Now, as I mentioned off the top, we're going to go through the Pistons schedule. It was released today. I've gone through, had a look, and made some win-loss predictions for each month, which has resulted in a win-loss total for the season. I just thought this would be a bit of fun. I'm going to share my screen in a moment. We'll go through each month, and I'll talk about a couple of key things to note in each month. But this isn't an official prediction. This is just kind of my prediction based off how rosters are right now and based off, the first day, first chance of looking at the roster, the schedule, I should say. So in just a moment, I'm going to share my screen. And as you can see here, we've got the Pistons Instagram post up, and I'm going to go through it month by month, as I just said, and things start tough. The Pistons, if you're a Pistons fan that's hopeful this season, like many of us are, the first, I think, week, 10 days, or even 2 weeks, it's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride. Detroit, as you can see here, opening night, play the Indiana Pacers on their home floor at Little Caesars Arena. Now, the Pacers clearly are a much better team on paper and based on last season's performance than the Pistons, but I actually have the Pistons winning this game. I think Detroit, opening night's a weird night. Lots of weird things can happen. It's the first time teams are on the floor in the real thing. And in a way, I feel like it's a chance for teams like the Pistons to come in with the good vibes and just to start the season strong. And because it's on their home floor, I think the Pistons win this game. So I have them beating the Pacers on opening night. But then this is where things get tough. I don't see the Pistons winning any of those 4 games. I think they put up a decent fight in Cleveland for JB Bickerstaff's return, but I still think they lose that one. I think the Boston game, that could be a rough one. I think the Heat game, that might be one they could snatch, but I'm not going to put it down as a win. And then, honestly, the Pistons always get blown out in Philly. Tobias Harris return game, I would expect some boos, but even if they put up a fight, I just can't see them winning that one at this point of the season. So Pistons through October are 1-4. They're on a 4-game losing streak as we enter November. And this is probably where the casual fans are going, why am I putting time with this team again? But stick with me, because I think in November, the Pistons go 500. I think they win 8 games in this month, as well as they lose 8. And the key games here for them to win, I think, are that Brooklyn Nets game up the top there. I think they win that. And then I think, personally, they can win 2 of the 3 games in that 3-game stretch of the Hawks, Rockets, and Heat. I think they can get 2 of those on their home floor. I think they can also, towards the mid to end of the month, I think they can beat Washington over there. I think they can beat the Bulls on their home floor, as well as the Raptors. And look, I also think they might beat the Lakers up there, but we shall see. But I think this is a decent month. And after October and November, which is 21 games, I have the Pistons at 9-12. And I feel like if the Pistons can be around that 8-9 win mark after the first 21 games, I feel like the vibes are good. I feel like that's a really solid start for a team with some new pieces, some rookies, and probably a team still trying to figure out its identity. I think one of the key themes for me this season, in terms of what I expect, I think the Pistons are going to be a pretty competitive team on their home court. And when I've gone through and looked at this schedule as we move to December here, I've tried to factor in giving them more of the benefit of the doubt in these home games. Road games, I think the Pistons are going to struggle on the road because I think their defense is going to be pretty poor. And I think on the road, you need a sound defense to go in there and start games strong. And that's why I think December is going to be rough. And there's only 8 games. And look, as you can see there's a week put aside for the NBA Cup, but there's only 8 games here, but I have the Pistons only winning 2 of these, and I think that's probably being a little bit generous. I think they beat Utah on their home floor, but I mean, I've just given them a game where maybe they beat the Lakers, maybe they beat the Kings in their home floor, maybe they beat the Suns. Like, I feel like they could get another game here. So I have them 2-6 in this month, but it's going to be brutal. They have a West Coast trip there, as you can see, where they go to Phoenix, LA, Sacramento, and Denver. At least none of them are back-to-backs, but nonetheless, they're traveling. So got the Pistons winning 2 games here. Now let's move to January, where we have another 16 games. I have the Pistons going 6-10 in this stretch. I think this is another tough kind of month. And there's some wins here where against Portland, the Hornets at the top there, another game against the Nets. I think they can get maybe a road game against Atlanta towards the end of the month and maybe sneak a home win against the Mavs towards the end of Jan. But I think this is going to be another tough month. The Raptors game there on Jan 11th is another winnable game, I think. But a lot of good teams still in there. And yeah, I've got them at 6-10 for this month. Now, as we move to February and we get to the midpoint of the season, Detroit we have the All-Star break in the middle of the month here, and of these 12 games, I have the Pistons winning 7. So I think Feb's going to be a strong month. I think they beat the Bulls, they beat the Hawks, and I think they can also maybe snatch a road game against the Spurs. That might be tough, but I have them winning 7 games here. And maybe that's a little bit optimistic of me, but I think they can win 7 here. And this puts them, according to my win-loss so far, by the end of February, which would have them of playing 57 games. So we're past the halfway point, but I have them winning 24-33, which is a very interesting number because this is around the trade deadline, and 24-33, I think will have you definitely in that 11th or 10th seed and hovering around the playing position. And this is where it's going to be really interesting to see how this franchise pivots. Do they try and make a trade to improve the roster? Well, not so much improve the roster, but do they keep Tobias Harris around? Do they keep Malik Beasley around instead of trading them for a first? Because Trajan has said he's looking to acquire assets, and if the Pistons are looking to acquire assets and that's their focus for this entire season, no matter what, I would suspect if Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., or Tobias Harris are playing really well, I feel like the Pistons could get some sort of offer there. And if they're serious about acquiring more first-round draft picks, maybe they move on from one of those guys, which would probably have an effect on the team's performance. And that would be, do they pivot towards Cooper Flag and trade some of these vets? So very interesting point. Like I said, by the end of Feb, I have the Pistons at 24 wins and 33 losses. Now, as we close to the final 2 months of the season, Detroit in the month of March, as you can see here, they have some winnable games here. They have a pair of games against the Wizards on their home floor, another winnable game against the Nets. They travel to Utah, but maybe that's a game they can snatch. That the Pistons have weirdly played well there since Cade got to the Pistons. I don't think they've won a game in Utah with him, but they've been awfully close in a number of them. I think maybe he could get a home win against the Pelicans, and maybe the Spurs, we shall see. Maybe Victor Wembanyama's out. You never know. But I still have the Pistons in this month winning 5 games, 5-10. I think they struggle to win many if any, of those road games that you can see. So I have them at 5-10. And then as we move to the final month of the season, the final 7 games, I have the Pistons winning 3 of these. So maybe they can get Memphis. Maybe they, you know what? After looking at this again, I think 3 is too many. I'm gonna say maybe they beat the Raptors. I'll give them that game, and then I think maybe they beat one of the Kings or Grizzlies. You know what? I'm gonna stick with my original prediction. I think they beat the Raptors. I think they get one of the Kings or Grizzlies on their home floor, and then I think they get one of the Bucks games because the Bucks will be resting players. So I have the Pistons at 3-4 for that month. And that brings us to the end of the schedule. So for the total season, and I should have mentioned this off the top, but this is only 79 games that have been released in this schedule due to the NBA Cup. So we can only go based off that, the Pistons win-loss. I have the Pistons winning 32 of those games and 47 losses. So I think I've probably come out a touch too optimistic because maybe they win another game. But let's say they lose all 3 of those other games and end the season 32-50. I think that's a touch optimistic. But look, I've just done this at a glance. Obviously, injuries, trades, there's so much that can change throughout the season. But I have the Pistons based off this going and winning 32 games, which I think a lot of fans will be happy with. I think the vibes will be high after a season like that. Like, man, this team's won. We haven't seen the Pistons win 30 games since 2019 when they made the playoffs. So to win over 30 games, I think would be awesome. But yeah, let me know your predictions down below. I hope that was okay to listen to. And like I said, 32 wins, 50 losses for me as of right now. I'll do an official prediction close to the season, but I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And we'll be back on Tuesday as usual for more Pistons Intellect. But until then, as always, go Pistons.